students. Today this video is going to be introducing your new lesson, your new writing lesson for lesson 9, which is over tone, and we're going to learn how to define tone and what are the multiple tones that are in a personal narrative. So let's jump right in. So the first thing that we're going to do is go over this short passage about the Museum of Giant Rocks and start thinking about the tone or what the author is trying to portray through his words in these passages. So passage 1 says, I'm quite convinced that the reopening of the Museum of Giant Rocks will not end well. In 1990, on the museum's opening day, the fasteners and bolts that held the giant rocks in place came loose, sending huge stones rolling in every direction, crushing cars and barely missing a crowd of people. The authorities immediately closed down the museum, but then opened it 2 years later. On the second opening day, the same exact thing occurred. Since then, the museum has reopened 7 times, each time with the same results. Today, again, the museum is scheduled to reopen after being rebuilt by the same architects and builders who have worked on it from the start. Passage 2 says, Really? Reopen the Museum of Giant Rocks? What a brilliant idea by the mayor and his advisors, because every town is better off with smashed storefronts and crushed cars and citizens running for their lives from huge boulders rolling around the middle of the street. And then the third and last passage. I squeezed my lucky penny in my pocket as we pulled into the parking lot of the Museum of Giant Rocks. I needed all the luck I could get. Rocks fall, rocks roll, and rocks bounce. Rocks give people concussions. Who had the crazy idea of reopening this museum of mayhem? I hugged the wall and tried to keep my legs from shaking as my dad dragged me to the first exhibit. Let me wrestle a bear. Let me wrestle Chainsaw. Anything but this. So I want you to pause right there, reread the passages, and think of the tone or what or how in the words and how the narrator and the author was trying to portray their tone or how they felt through their words. So what do you think, boys and girls? What are some of the tones that you think, or what did you get from the first 3 passages? So I was thinking, what was the first? Was the first rather silly? No, I think that from the first passage, they were a bit. The author was serious and scientific. They kept bringing up things such as how big the boulders and the rocks were, and they were very serious and stating in all the facts of the reopenings of the museum. And then for passage 2, I think they were pretty sarcastic because he was like, really? Reopen the Museum of Rocks? What a brilliant idea. Like basically saying he wasn't really thinking it was a brilliant idea. He was being sarcastic, like, this is not a good idea. It's unsafe. And then the third passage, frightened or nervous. I took that because I was figured she was like, rocks fall, rocks bounce, rocks give concussions. And she said she would rather wrestle a bear, juggle chainsaws, anything but go into that reopening of the giant rock. So she was obviously fearful. So you see, boys and girls, through words and the words that you use in your personal narratives and when you're writing, you can express whatever you're trying to show through your words. So if you're writing something about being excited, you could be like, I was joyful, and just to give the reader the idea and feeling of how you felt when you were writing and the tone that you're trying to express through your words. So let's look into the definition of tone. Tone is a noun. It's the attitude or mood of an author or a character. So let's start to brainstorm additional tones and things that might describe our everyday events like waking up, eating breakfast. For example, you can have a positive, hopeful, and compassionate tone towards waking up and eating breakfast. You could be, I am so excited. I made my bowl of cereal and I am ready to start the day. Or you could be negative and say, I do not like waking up early and I really don't like eating breakfast. I'd rather go to bed. Or you could be neutral and just like, another day. I neither have sadness or joy. I'm just grateful for another day. So you can just be factual, scientific, and not really give a negative or personal or positive tone. So now, boys and girls, I want you to stop this video, pause it, and then we're going to go over our assignment that we have in Schoology. So welcome back, boys and girls. This portion of the video is describing and explaining your assignment writing activity 9.1 that's housed inside of your Schoology lesson. So today the instructions are: answer the multiple choice questions about the tone of the Museum of Giant Rocks passages, highlight the correct answer, and then find and write evidence from the passage that supports your answer. So again, we have you're going to read the passages that we just discussed in our lesson, and then you're going to identify the tone that you received from the passage. For example, the tone of passage one is what? Is it optimistic, wishful, C, scientific, passionate? Whatever you feel that tone is, you're going to highlight that answer. So if you think it's wishful, you're going to highlight B. If you think it's scientific, you're going to highlight T. You're only going to highlight one tone, one answer per excuse me question. So you shouldn't have A and B highlighted. You should only have one of the answers highlighted. And then below where it says write a sentence or a phrase from passage one that supports your answer. So what quote or phrase within this passage supports your idea that this is the tone of the passage is wish for a scientific, whatever you choose, whatever you think the correct answer is. And then for number two, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to read this passage, and then you're going to choose which tone you think is for the passage two. Is it sarcastic, serious, respectful, optimistic? Whatever it is, you're going to highlight one of these answer choices, and then down below, pick a quote or a phrase within this passage that supports your the answer that you chose. And then lastly, the same thing. You're going to read the passage and then highlight one of the answer choices that you believe is the tone that they're trying to portray in this passage. And then you always have your evidence there, so it backs up why you think that is the answer. So you're going to pick any quote, any passage, any quote. I mean, any phrase or any quote within this passage that matches your answer here. And then that's it, boys and girls. So make sure that you thoroughly and take your time and read these passages, and so that you can get the perfect and correct tone that the author was trying to portray. Take your time. Make sure you highlight only one answer, and make sure that you list your phrase or quote or sentence that supports your answer. Do well, and then submit it on Schoology.